The phone vibrated against my kitchen counter, Emily's name flashing across the screen like a warning sign. My fingers trembled as I reached for it, memories of our last conversation still raw in my mind. "Jocelyn, I need those papers." Her voice cut through the line, sharp and demanding as ever. "Your grandmother's estate documents. I know you have them." I gripped the counter's edge until my knuckles turned white. "Emily, it's been 15 years since we last spoke. You don't get to call me out of nowhere and—" "Oh, but I do," she interrupted, her laugh carrying that same patronizing tone I remembered from high school. "Because what's in those papers, that could ruin everything you think you know about your precious grandmother. My name is Jocelyn, and until that moment, I thought I'd left my past firmly behind me. But Emily had always known exactly how to drag me back in." "What are you talking about?" I managed to keep my voice steady, despite the rapid beating of my heart. "Meet me at Riverside Coffee tomorrow at noon. Bring the papers, and I'll explain everything." The line went dead before I could respond. I grabbed my keys and drove to my grandmother's apartment. My apartment now, though I hadn't been able to bring myself to move in yet. 3 months after her death, and her presence still lingered in every corner. The lock clicked open, and I stepped into the familiar space. Photos lined the walls, memories of happier times. My brother Neil and me at graduation, both of us grinning despite our parents' absence. My grandmother's warm smile watching over us all. "What did you hide from me?" I whispered to the empty room. The apartment still smelled like her lavender hand cream. I made my way to her study, where boxes of documents waited to be sorted. My friend Yara had offered to help, but I'd insisted on doing it alone. Now I wished I hadn't. As I rifled through the papers, a heavy thud caught my attention. Behind her desk, a wooden box had fallen, its corner peeking out from beneath a dusty curtain. I'd never seen it before. My hands shook as I pulled it out. The box was locked, but there was no key in sight. On top, in my grandmother's elegant handwriting, were the words, "For Jocelyn, when the time comes." "When what time comes?" I muttered, turning the box over in my hands. My phone buzzed again. A text from Emily. "Found what I mentioned yet?" How did she know about the box? What game was she playing? I called Neil, needing to hear a voice I could trust. He answered on the third ring. "Hey sis, everything okay?" Emily called me today. The silence on his end spoke volumes. "Emily Evans, Jesus, Jocelyn, what did she want?" "She's asking about grandmother's papers, says she knows something about them." "Don't get pulled into her games again," Neil warned. "Remember what happened last time?" I did remember. The betrayal, the lies, the way she turned our entire senior class against me. But this was different. This was about my grandmother. "I have to know, Neil. If she's hiding something, just be careful," he sighed. "You know how she operates." After hanging up, I sat on the floor beside the mysterious box, Emily's words echoing in my head. Whatever secrets my grandmother had kept, whatever Emily thought she knew, I had to find out the truth, even if it meant facing the one person I'd spent 15 years trying to forget. I picked up my phone and typed, "Fine, tomorrow at noon. But this better be worth it." Emily's response was immediate. "Oh, trust me, it will be." I spent the entire morning searching for the key to my grandmother's box. Every drawer, every shelf, even inside old cookie tins. Nothing. With only an hour left before meeting Emily, I finally found it taped beneath my grandmother's jewelry box, wrapped in a small note that read, "Trust your instincts." The key was old and brass, its teeth worn smooth at the edges. It slid into the lock with a satisfying click. Inside, I found a leather-bound diary and a stack of yellowed letters. The first entry was dated 20 years ago. "My dearest Jocelyn, if you're reading this, then someone has finally asked the right questions. There are things you need to know about your inheritance, about the Evans family, and about the promise I made." A knock at my door made me jump. Yara stood there, concern etched across her face. "You're not seriously going to meet her alone, are you?" I closed the diary, my hands trembling. "I have to know what she knows." "Then I'm coming with you," Yara declared, crossing her arms. I remember what she did to you in high school. The rumors, the stolen boyfriend, don't. I cut her off. That was a lifetime ago. And yet here she is, still trying to control you. We arrived at Riverside Coffee 15 minutes early. Emily was already there, perfectly poised at a corner table, looking exactly like she had in high school, just with more expensive clothes and harder eyes. Jocelyn, she smiled, her gaze sliding dismissively over Yara. I see you still need a bodyguard. Cut the crap, Emily. What do you want? She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Did you know your grandmother was holding on to something that belonged to my family? Something worth quite a lot of money. That's ridiculous. My grandmother would never. No? Emily pulled out her phone, showing me a photo of a document. Then explain why her signature is on this loan agreement with my father. $50,000, never repaid. My hands clenched under the table. You're lying. Am I? Check her diary. Page 43, I believe. July 15th, 2003. The specificity of her knowledge hit me like a punch to the gut. How did she know about the diary? I want what's owed to my family, Emily continued, with 20 years of interest. Unless you'd prefer I take this to court? Imagine the scandal. Your sweet grandmother, a thief. Yara stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. We're done here. But Emily wasn't finished. You have 3 days, Jocelyn, or I start making calls. Back at the apartment, I frantically flipped to page 43 of the diary. There it was, but not what Emily had claimed. The entry described a very different story. Today, Thomas Evans threatened to expose everything unless I paid him. But I won't give in to blackmail. Not again. I've protected this secret for too long. My phone rang. Neil. Emily just called me, he said, without preamble. She's trying to get me on her side. Says she has proof that grandmother embezzled money from their family business. She's lying, I said, staring at the diary. But I think I know why. There's something bigger here, Neil. Something grandmother was protecting us from. What are you going to do? I thought about Emily's smug face, about my grandmother's warning to trust my instincts, about the years I spent recovering from Emily's last betrayal. I'm going to find out exactly what grandmother was hiding, I said. And then I'm going to make Emily wish she'd never brought up the past. Jocelyn. No, Neil. This time, she picked the wrong fight. The law office smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Palmer, my grandmother's former attorney, spread the documents across his mahogany desk while I held my breath. Your grandmother was very thorough in her record-keeping, he said, adjusting his glasses. But these accusations Emily's making, they don't add up. I pushed the diary entry across his desk. What about this? She mentions blackmail. Palmer's eyes widened as he read. This is interesting. Did you know Emily's father was your grandmother's business partner in the 90s? What? No, she never. Because technically, he continued, shuffling through more papers, half of your inheritance should have gone to the Evans family. My stomach dropped. Should have. Thomas Evans signed away his rights to the company 2 decades ago. For $1. Palmer pulled out a faded contract. Very unusual. People don't just give away successful businesses. The office door opened, and Neil walked in unannounced. His face was tight with anger. You should have told me you were doing this, he said, dropping into the chair beside me. I didn't want to drag you into. She's my grandmother too, Jocelyn. He turned to Palmer. Emily's been calling my wife, showing up at my office. She's desperate for something. Palmer cleared his throat. There's more. The night before Thomas Evans signed away his share, there was a fire at their main warehouse. Insurance never paid out because of suspected fraud. Let me guess, I said. Emily's father was the last one there. Actually, no. Palmer looked uncomfortable. Your grandmother was. Neil and I exchanged looks. This wasn't the woman we knew. The one who baked cookies every Sunday and volunteered at the animal shelter. My phone buzzed, a text from Yara. Emily's boyfriend Robert just came to my shop, asked weird questions about your grandmother's jewelry collection. The jewelry, I whispered. remembering the key under the jewelry box. Palmer, was there ever any mention of valuable jewelry in the company records? He rifled through more papers. Just this inventory list from '99. Something about a rare diamond collection being stored in the warehouse before the fire. The fire that destroyed everything, Neil added. Not everything, I said, pulling out my phone to text Yara back. What if grandmother's jewelry box isn't just a jewelry box? Neil grabbed my arm. Jocelyn, wait. If what you're suggesting is true, this is serious. We're talking about insurance fraud, possible theft, or maybe protection. I interrupted. The diary entry mentioned protecting a secret. What if she was protecting us from something worse? Palmer's phone rang. His face darkened as he listened. That was my secretary. Emily just filed a legal claim against your grandmother's estate. She's requesting an immediate freeze on all assets. She can't do that. Neil stood up, pacing. She can if she has evidence of fraud, Palmer said grimly. You have 48 hours before the freeze takes effect. I gathered my things quickly. I need to get to that jewelry box. I'm coming with you, Neil said. No. I turned to face him. I need you to keep Emily distracted. Call her. Tell her you're considering helping her case. Buy me time. He hesitated, then nodded. Be careful. If grandmother really did take those diamonds, then she had a damn good reason, I finished. And I'm going to find out what it was. Outside Palmer's office, I called Yara. I need your help. Bring your tools. The ones you use to fix vintage jewelry. Emily's boyfriend is still hanging around, she whispered. Perfect. Keep him there. I'm heading to grandmother's apartment now. Jocelyn, she paused. What exactly are we looking for? I thought about the warehouse fire, the signed-away business, my grandmother's secret diary. The truth, I said. And hopefully, a way to shut Emily up for good. The jewelry box sat on my grandmother's dresser, innocent-looking, despite the secrets it might hold. Yara knelt beside me, her repair kit spread out on the floor. The bottom's got a false panel, she said, running her fingers along the edges. See how the wood grain doesn't quite match? A sharp knock at the door made us both freeze. Through the peephole, I saw Robert, Emily's boyfriend, shifting nervously in the hallway. I know you're in there, he called out. Please, I need to talk to you. It's about Emily. I glanced at Yara, who nodded and kept working on the box. Opening the door just enough to block the view inside, I faced Robert. Whatever Emily sent you to say. She didn't send me, he interrupted, looking over his shoulder. She doesn't know I'm here. Can I come in? Against my better judgment, I let him in, keeping him in the living room while Yara worked in the bedroom. Emily's not well, Robert said, sinking into the couch. She's obsessed with this inheritance thing. Keeps talking about diamonds, about revenge. Revenge for what? He ran a hand through his hair. Your grandmother got her father arrested 20 years ago, right after the warehouse fire. What? The room seemed to tilt. That's not in any of the records. Because it was sealed. Emily's father took a deal, served 18 months for fraud. But the diamonds were never found. He leaned forward. Emily thinks your grandmother stole them and framed her father. A crash from the bedroom made Robert jump. What was that? Nothing, I said quickly. Go on. Look, I've seen Emily destroy people before. She won't stop until she gets what she wants. He pulled out his phone, showing me texts from Emily. She's planning something big, something illegal. Why are you telling me this? Because I found these in her desk. He handed me a stack of photos, surveillance shots, of me, Neil, even Yara. She's been watching you for months, waiting for your grandmother to die. Jocelyn. Yara's urgent whisper came from the bedroom. You need to see this. I have to go, I told Robert. Thank you for the warning. Be careful, he said, heading for the door. And don't tell Emily I was here. In the bedroom, Yara had the false bottom removed. Inside lay a USB drive and a handwritten letter. It's addressed to you, she said. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Dearest Jocelyn, the diamonds were never real. They were paste copies Thomas used to defraud investors. When I discovered his scheme, he threatened to harm you and Neil. I couldn't let that happen. The evidence that sent him to prison is on this drive. All my love, grandmother. My phone buzzed. Neil, Emily just left my office. She's heading your way. Says she's done waiting. We need to go, I told Yara, grabbing the USB and letter. Now. We were halfway to the door when Emily's voice rang out from the hallway. Going somewhere. She stood in the doorway, her smile razor sharp. Behind her, Robert wouldn't meet my eyes. You didn't really think he was on your side, did you? Emily laughed. Robert works for me, always has. What do you want, Emily? The same thing I've always wanted. She stepped into the apartment. To watch your perfect little world burn. Just like my father's did. Your father was a criminal, I shot back. My grandmother protected us from him. No, Emily's eyes flashed. Your grandmother destroyed my family, and now, she pulled out a gun. You're going to help me destroy hers. Yara gasped beside me as Emily closed the door. Let's talk about those diamonds, shall we? Put the gun down, Emily, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You're not a killer. No? She gestured with the weapon. Sit down, both of you. Robert, check their phones. Robert moved forward reluctantly, collecting our phones. His hands were shaking. The diamonds were fake, I told her. Your father was scamming people. That's why he went to prison. Emily's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. More lies. My father built that business from nothing, and your grandmother stole everything. I can prove it. I clutched the USB drive in my pocket. Just let me show you. The only thing I want to see is the real diamonds. She pointed the gun at Yara. Tell me where they are, or your friend gets hurt. Yara spoke up, her voice surprisingly calm. Emily, look at Robert. He can barely stand still. He knows this is wrong. Shut up. Emily's hand trembled. Robert, get the jewelry box. As Robert moved toward the bedroom, I caught his eye. Something passed between us. Fear, regret, possibility. Emily, he said softly, maybe we should get the box. The front door burst open. Neil stood there, phone in hand. Police are on their way, Emily. Everything happened at once. Emily spun toward Neil. Robert lunged for the gun. Yara grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the kitchen. The gun went off. The sound was deafening in the small apartment. Robert stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. Oh God, Emily whispered, the gun dropping from her hand. Robert. I kicked the weapon away as Neil rushed to Robert's side. Sirens wailed in the distance. He needs an ambulance, Neil said, pressing his jacket against the wound. Emily backed away, her face pale. I didn't mean. It's over, I told her, pulling out the USB drive. The truth about your father is right here. Want to see it before the police arrive? Her eyes locked onto the drive. Show me. I plugged it into my grandmother's old laptop. Security camera footage from the warehouse played across the screen. Emily's father, clearly visible, switching real diamonds for fakes, doctoring paperwork. No. Emily shook her head. He wouldn't. There's more, I said, opening another file. Bank records, insurance documents. Your father was stealing from his own investors. My grandmother found out and tried to stop him quietly, but he threatened her family, us. Emily sank to the floor as police officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Everything moved in a blur after that. Paramedics taking Robert, officers reading Emily her rights. Detective questions that seemed to last for hours. Later, sitting in my living room with Neil and Yara, the adrenaline finally wore off. You okay? Neil asked, handing me a cup of tea. Not really. I stared at the jewelry box, now tagged as evidence. All these years, grandmother carried this burden alone, protecting us. She protected Emily too, Yara pointed out. By sealing the records, she gave Emily's father a chance to start over after prison. She didn't want Emily to know the truth. Fat lot of good that did, Neil muttered. My phone buzzed. A text from Palmer. Emily's taking a plea deal. No trial needed. It's really over. What happens now? Yara asked. I looked around the apartment, my grandmother's home, now mine, filled with memories both bitter and sweet. Now we honor her the right way, I said, by living the life she protected so fiercely. Neil squeezed my hand. She'd be proud of you, you know. Maybe, I smiled sadly. But I think she'd be even prouder of us all, for finally learning the truth about family. The ones we're born with, and the ones we choose. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, unaware that in one small apartment, decades of secrets had finally come to light. The hospital corridor was quiet at midnight when I visited Robert. His shoulder was bandaged, and he looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in the stark white bed. I didn't expect you to come, he said, avoiding my eyes. I almost didn't. I sat in the plastic chair beside him. But I need to know why you helped her. He shifted uncomfortably. Emily saved my life once. I was at rock bottom, addicted to pills, and she got me clean, gave me a job. I owed her everything. And now I'm going to testify against her. He reached for the water glass with his good arm. But that's not why you're really here, is it? I pulled out an old photograph I'd found hidden in the diary. Explain this. The photo showed Emily's father with my grandmother, but there was something else, a young man standing between them, his arm around my grandmother's waist. Robert's face went pale. Where did you get that? Found it last night. The man in the middle, that's your father, isn't it? He nodded slowly. Emily doesn't know. Nobody knows. My father and your grandmother, they were in love. But Thomas Evans found out, used it as leverage. That's why she protected you, I whispered, even when you were helping Emily. She knew who I was the whole time. His voice cracked. She used to leave food outside my apartment when I was using. Never said a word, just watched over me. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Martinez, police are here to take your statement. Wait, Robert called, as I stood to leave. There's something else you need to see. In my jacket pocket. I retrieved his jacket from the closet. In the pocket was a small key. Safety deposit box, he explained. Downtown Bank, box 247. Your grandmother gave it to my father for safekeeping. I've been paying the fees since he died. My hands trembled. What's in it? The real reason Emily's father went to prison. The evidence your grandmother couldn't use without exposing everyone's secrets. The nurse cleared her throat impatiently. Go, Robert said. But be careful. Emily has friends in that bank. I drove straight there, calling Neil on the way. Meet me at Downtown Bank. Bring Palmer. They were waiting when I arrived. The bank manager, a nervous man named David, led us to the vault. Box 247, I said, showing the key. He hesitated. That box was accessed yesterday. What? Neil stepped forward. By who? A woman with proper authorization. Emily. Call the police, Palmer interrupted. Now. But when we opened the box, it wasn't empty as we feared. Inside was a single USB drive, labeled Copy, and a note in my grandmother's handwriting. My darlings. If you're reading this, you've finally found the truth. I made copies of everything. Emily's father didn't just commit fraud. He killed Robert's father to keep him quiet. The proof is here, along with evidence of every crime Thomas Evans committed. I'm sorry for the secrets. Sometimes love means protecting people from the truth until they're ready to face it. All my love, Grace. Neil's phone rang. The police. Emily had been caught trying to leave the country. In her possession? The original USB drive, exactly where my grandmother had known she'd lead us. She played us all, Neil said, amazed. Right to the end. Palmer smiled. Your grandmother was always 3 steps ahead. I clutched the note, feeling the weight of decades of secrets finally lifting. Let's finish this, I said. For grandmother, for Robert's father, for everyone who kept silent for too long. The bank's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as we walked out, carrying the final pieces of a puzzle that had shaped all our lives. Sometimes the greatest acts of love are written in silence, in the spaces between what we say and what we hide. The police station interrogation room was cold, but Emily's stare was colder. She sat across from me, her designer clothes replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her perfect makeup gone. "Come to gloat?" she asked. "No." I placed the old photograph on the table. "Come to show you this." She glanced at it, then away. "So what?" "A picture of my father with your grandmother and some man. That man was Robert's father. Your father killed him." Her hand jerked, knocking over the paper cup of water in front of her. "You're lying." "The evidence is all there, Emily. Security footage, bank records, even your father's confession, recorded by my grandmother before he died last year." "Last year?" Her mask cracked slightly. "My father's been dead for a year?" "You didn't know." I studied her face. "He left you a letter. It's on the USB drive you tried to steal." Her fingers trembled as she reached for the photo again. "Play it." I nodded to the detective behind the glass, and a screen in the room flickered to life. Thomas Evans' gaunt face appeared. "Emily, my daughter," he began. "By the time you see this, I'll be gone. The cancer's spread too far, but I need to confess something. The night Robert's father died wasn't an accident." Emily's face crumpled as her father detailed everything: the fraud, the murder, the years of lies. How my grandmother had discovered the truth, but offered him a deal: confess to the fraud, serve a short sentence, and she'd keep the murder quiet to protect Emily. "She knew what it would do to you," his recording continued. "Finding out your father was a killer. She loved you like her own, remember? Before I ruined everything." "Turn it off," Emily whispered. "Your father wanted you to know." "Turn it off." She slammed her hands on the table. "She didn't love me. She destroyed my life." "She saved your life," I corrected. "She kept you out of foster care when your father went to prison. Set up the trust fund that paid for your college, all anonymously." Emily's makeup was streaked with tears now. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand. This wasn't about diamonds or money. It was about family. The family we could have been." "Could have been?" She laughed bitterly. "Look where we are now. You pulled a gun, Emily, shot Robert, all for revenge against a woman who spent her life protecting you." The door opened. Robert stood there, arm in a sling, flanked by officers. "Hello, Emily." She couldn't meet his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me about your father?" "Would it have changed anything?" he asked softly. She buried her face in her hands. When she looked up, something had shifted in her expression. "I want to make a full confession," she said to the detective who had entered. "Everything. The stalking, the blackmail, the gun, all of it." I stood to leave, but she caught my arm. "Jocelyn, I'm sorry. Not just for this. For everything. High school. The rumors. I've been angry for so long, I forgot how to be anything else." "I know," I said. "That's exactly what grandmother was trying to prevent." Outside the station, Robert waited for me. "Thank you," he said, "for showing her the truth. Maybe now she can finally heal. Maybe we all can." I looked up at the night sky. Grandmother would have liked that. My phone buzzed. "Neil. Just finished reading Dad's old letters. You're not going to believe what else grandmother kept hidden." I showed the message to Robert. He smiled. "More secrets?" "More truth," I corrected. "And this time, we're facing it together." We walked toward my car, leaving behind the weight of decades of silence. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in helping them face the truth they've been running from all along. The morning sun streamed through my grandmother's apartment windows as I packed the last of her photos into boxes. Neil sat cross-legged on the floor, reading through our father's letters. "Listen to this," he said. "Grace, I'm sorry I couldn't be there for the kids. The gambling debts were too deep. Thomas Evans said he'd hurt them if I didn't disappear." "So that's why Dad left?" I sat beside him. "Evans threatened him too. Grandmother protected everyone." Neil shook his head. "Even the people who hurt her." The doorbell rang. Robert stood there with Yara, both carrying coffee and bagels. "Ready for this?" Robert asked. I nodded. Today was the day we'd open my grandmother's safety deposit box, the last one, found mentioned in our father's letters. At the bank, Palmer met us with the key. Your grandmother left specific instructions. This box was to be opened only when all the truth was out. Inside was a single envelope and a small velvet pouch. The envelope contained a deed to a house by the lake. I remember that house, Neil said. We spent summers there when we were kids. Read the note, Yara urged. My dearest family, I read aloud. This house was where I first fell in love, where I watched my grandchildren grow, and where I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. I choose all of you. The house belongs to everyone named in this letter. Jocelyn, Neil, Robert, and yes, even Emily, once she's ready to heal. In the pouch, you'll find 4 keys. Use them wisely. The lake house has always been a sanctuary for those who need to find their way home. Make it yours now. P.S. Check behind the loose brick in the fireplace. Your father left something there for you both, the day before he disappeared. Robert opened the velvet pouch, 4 keys glinting in his palm. Should we drive up there now? Yara asked. Actually, Palmer interjected, there's someone who wants to see you first. He led us to his office. A man stood by the window, older but familiar from childhood photos. Our father, Jocelyn, Neil. His voice cracked. I know I don't deserve. Neil moved first, wrapping him in a fierce hug. I stayed back, tears burning my eyes. Evans is dead, our father said. When I heard, I knew it was finally safe. Your grandmother, she sent me updates about you both, every year. Never told me where she mailed them, but they always found me. Why didn't you fight back? I asked. Why just leave? Because Evans owned judges, cops. Your grandmother knew the only way to beat him was to play the long game. Gather evidence, protect everyone until the right moment. Like a chess master, Robert smiled. Moving pieces across decades, I finally stepped forward, taking my father's hand. Come to the lake house with us. There's something there you need to see too. Later, standing in front of the old fireplace, we watched our father remove the loose brick. Inside was a tin box containing 2 letters, one for each of us, and a photo of him teaching us to swim in the lake. Grandmother knew, I said softly. She knew you'd come back once it was safe. That's why she left you a key too. Neil found it in the bottom of the velvet pouch, a 5th key, wrapped in a note, for second chances. Outside, the lake sparkled in the afternoon sun. Robert and Yara were setting up a picnic on the dock. Our father was showing Neil old fishing spots. I held my grandmother's diary, its pages now filled with answers instead of questions. Some might call it revenge, the way she orchestrated Evans's downfall. But I knew better. This was her final gift. Not just truth or justice, but something far more precious. The chance for a broken family to heal, to forgive, to begin again. I opened the diary to its last page and started to write. Dear grandmother, today we all came home.